Hello, my name is Matthias, and welcome to the Game Week 2 edition of the FPL Score podcast. And with me today, I have, as always, my co-host Kevin, who is ready for Game Week 2, ready to put Game Week 1 behind him. He's already done a transfer. That's a bit of a spoiler here, and you can probably, from the intro picture you can see here, you can probably gather what Kevin has done with his team. But anyways, how's it going, Kevin? What happened in Game Week 1 for you? How do you feel about FPL starting now that you have one game week to go off of?
Yeah, a bit frustrating that I didn't back Salah in regards to that, but I think it's as an Isak owner and as anyone who bought, someone who pretty much watched the entirety of the Southampton Newcastle or Newcastle Southampton game, it was dreadful of Fabian Schär to be goaded into uh, headbutting a player and all this type of stuff, and really, really, really stupid from him to do it against uh, Barrington Diaz, and it it completely changed the match. And Isak just showed how brilliant he is with his exquisite assist to Joelinton.
Yep.
That was as pinpoint as it gets of a pass, and
Yeah.
Joelinton did really well to score that chance. And
Really
you know
efficient.
what? I actually full credit to Newcastle for still winning that game and seeing it through, because Southampton were dangerous, and Diaz was very close to scoring a few times in that game as well. And as a Nick Pope owner, it felt good getting those cheeky 9 points and random saves that he got there towards the end. But I felt completely hard done by because Isak could have easily matched Salah in that game and should have, but the red card completely changed the dynamics. And I can say that about a lot of the different players that I have in my team, including DCL, who could have easily have gone some output if a penalty call went his way, and all this type of thing. So a bit frustrating, but it's game week 1 out of 38. I can't be like have a loser mentality like Tottenham and just be like, you know what, it's already over. So, yeah, I think bad game week 1, but still very manageable. And I think the main reason why is because I still have Salah, which a lot of people don't, and I have the choice of either Haaland or Salah captaincy this upcoming week, and I might even triple. I might triple captain because
Mhm.
there isn't going to be that many double game weeks, as Ben Carlin has made it very clear. So I think I might roll the dice and see. But it does feel a bit early, but considering that it's Ipswich at the Etihad, anything can happen.
Yeah, you've talked a bit about your team already, but let's go into it properly and look at how you did this game week. You ended up with 48 points, which is disappointing, of course, but like you said, could have been different if you had the captaincy choice either changed to Salah or if Newcastle played with 11 men the whole game and Isak actually got to play and properly attack in that game. That could have been a different story. Um,
And
and several other things as well. That's what we're going to delve into now with your team, basically. Um, any first of all, just any big regrets with your team? Anything you wish you would have done differently now that you look back at it from a gimmick one perspective?
I was very not sold on Quansah, as I told you, and I have the receipts to show that because I didn't fully know if he was that really nailed. I didn't think he was as bad as Arne Slot made it sound like in that regards, but
Yeah.
I think Konate is criminally underrated. So it makes perfect sense for Konate and Virgil van Dijk to be the central pairing. So I wasn't always sold on him. I am super beyond belief annoyed at Fabian Schär because, as a lot of people know, Jacob Murphy was the one who had to be subbed off to basically fix the team balance. So a bit frustrating that yeah, I had so many things go against me in regards to that, because I reckon if Murphy got to play, especially with his awesome preseason, it might have looked better for them as well.
Yeah.
So really frustrating with that. Really frustrating that Nkunku didn't last 90 minutes either. I still think that he's still a good pick, and even though Joao Felix is here, I don't think Nkunku is the one who's mainly threatened. I do think, yes, it does leave the wingers in a weird position and cams in a weird position, but I think Nicholas Jackson out of him and Nkunku is more in trouble with Felix here. So um, yeah, other than that, I can't really hate on my team too much. Everton losing as badly as they did was definitely not on the cards. Liverpool kept a clean sheet, but obviously he got subbed off at the half. Brentford beating
Palace.
Palace was a bit unexpected, and yellow cards from Mark Gray and stuff didn't really help, but I can't really complain. I had four players perform, the rest did dog shit, but that's FPL, right? At the end of the day, I don't
Yeah.
feel like it's the end of the world. I definitely don't believe that my players are bad. Uh, I do have some regrets on not going with Arsenal, especially Bukayo Saka, who I really enjoy and like having in FPL. I feel like every time I don't have him, he hauls, so it's a bit frustrating.
Yeah.
When things get a bit easier, I'll 100% be bringing him back. And I think, yeah, if Son doesn't deliver against Everton, then I think he's such an easy out. I think Haaland, I'll keep for the rest of the season. Salah looks like the same. Yeah, I mean,
Haaland and Salah for the rest of the season, both of them.
I think so, unless
Really? Wow.
anything big happens. Like they're just so consistent. Like at the end of the day, like they are the 200-point club sort of players, and I trust both of them. So unless like major injuries or bad run of fixtures, like I think they're going to be in my team for a long while. It's everyone else that's more expendable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think personally, usually I wouldn't do it myself. At least I wouldn't put that many eggs in one basket when it comes to a lot of expensive players. With Salah and Haaland already, I think Son was a bit much. But then again, if Son was Saka instead, there would have been no complaints because it would have been a great team. And yeah, if you, for example, had Saka over Son and you had Salah as captain, you would have had a really good score and have Haaland ready for Ipswich at home next game week, and you would have been in a great position. So it's not too bad, but it's just a bit risky, especially seeing as you now have a lot of players that are really cheap, and with Quansah now not being an option anymore, seemingly it seems like he's going to be dropped now, and you've already sold him, which we're going to get to eventually. You could have avoided that probably if you had a bit more of a balanced squad, I think, but all in all, not the worst tactic to go with. Captaincy, like I said, could have been done differently, but at the same time, Isak was unlucky. And the good thing about Murphy being subbed off early is the fact that he's going to be rested for the next game. He's going to be ready to play, and it wasn't his fault. It was just because they needed to change the tactics, basically. So he's going to be ready to go now onwards. It sucks a bit that it was the best game possible that he, against Southampton at home, where he was subbed off early, and that's just really unlucky because he's looked really good in preseason, and I think that was actually a really nice pick if he was able to play. So especially in Nkunku and Murphy, I feel like you should feel really hard done by with those guys, and Quansah for that matter, because Quansah did start after all, and they did have 0-0 at the half against Ipswich, so seemingly there was no reason to make a defensive substitution there, but it seemed to have worked anyways for Liverpool basically. But yeah, 48 points, not the end of the world. You're still in a decent position, I think, with your team, and you still have some flexibility. Like, you have a lot of expensive players, which means you can sell one of them and have a lot of funds to spread around and get basically who you want wherever you want as well in the team. You can downgrade Son to like a 5.5 midfielder and have enough money to go for someone like Watkins rather than Calvert-Lewin, or go for someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold over someone like Guehi, for example. So you have a lot of flexibility still for Game Week 3, but you have used the transfer as well, so you have less flexibility in that matter. But yeah, anyways, I think you're in an okay position still, even though the first game week was a bit of a disappointment for you. Then we go on to Kimo's squad, the third founding member of the FPL Scope podcast. He had a slightly better game week with 55 points. A lot helped by Pedro Porro's 9 points in the game against Leicester, scoring a goal against Leicester and looking really offensive before he got injured and had to be substituted out. And that's basically the biggest problem for Kimo now. Pedro Porro might be out. Quansah was subbed off and is not really ready to start. Trent looks amazing, and I really wish I had Trent myself. I think he looks really, really good. But then, apart from Trent, he also has Barco, who is not going to play at all, and also Cresswell, who doesn't play at all for West Ham either. So he doesn't really have many defenders. He has basically Trent, potentially Pedroporo, and then Quansah. Maybe he gets to start again, but most likely not. I think that's the biggest issue for Kimo. He also went a bit heavy on both Spurs and Newcastle, for that matter, and both of them kind of disappointed a bit, especially Newcastle with the red card. Gordon was unlucky, even more so than Isak, I think, in terms of him being so dependent on the home games. The fact that they had a really good home game and then he didn't get a chance to get any points in that game. But Jota also looks like a nice pick for Kimo with 8 points, I think. But yeah, in general, Kimo's team, it's a bit different from you, but you have a lot of the same players as well. It's just Jota rather than Salah, and then spreading the money around a bit to get someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold in there, and Gordon rather than Murphy, for example, and Solanke up front. And Pedroporo, like, he has a bit more funds because he doesn't have Salah. But what do you think of Kimo's team compared to yours and stuff? How do you feel you compare to him? And do you wish you had his squad, or do you wish you had your own squad? Like, how do you rank them up next to each other after game week 1?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think it was a bit of a miss not to have either Haaland or Vermento instead of Quansah when you already have Trent. Like I've always said, I don't like when you double up on defenses and stuff like that, especially like, yeah, it can go well. And to be fair to him, Quansah should have probably gone the clean sheet and then been subbed off. But at the end of the day, I think that would have been an easy spread thing that he could have done there. Yep. Just because it's the same price, and for sure with at least Hall that he would have played. And other than that, I think the team's really cool. I think Solanke was a bit unlucky not to do more. Son was a bit. I can't remember if Son really.
Yeah, didn't really do too much, Son, I think.
But that's classic him. He breaks Andre Gomez's leg, he's ready to play against us and batter us at home. So I'm expecting him to be super selfish in the next game. I think this is still a quality team. I think Jota. I think that's where I maybe should have done the double up, in the sense of like doubling up on midfielders, especially certainly a good one like Diogo Jota, who's now playing pretty centrally as a striker and all this type of stuff. I am a bit jealous, but at the same time, I'm also aware that he's a hamstring away from not playing for a while. So it's very touch and go with him. But it's a nice team. It's very balanced. I think that's the thing. It is pretty heavy hitting in some aspects, but it's very balanced because it's 3 good strikers. It's I would go as far as to say 4 really good picks, and Rodgers is a very hitting commodity in the sense that he does play pretty forward. And I think if God forbid Watkins gets injured, I think Rodgers might get the chance to play there. I mean, Duran now scored and looks good, so probably not, but Rodgers gets to play a lot of central positions as well, and probably should have scored against West Ham if it wasn't for a very tamed finish. But generally speaking, this is a good team and very balanced. It's just a question of whether he should get rid of Quansah for some safe 4.5 pick, and I
now
think
he can't though because Quansah's gone down in price.
So to 4.4. So he did he make the change? I don't think he did.
Hasn't done a change now. So he's
so
kind of stuck
hopefully,
with Quansah, hoping that Quansah can start. He could start
nice.
Quansah. Like, it's not out of the question, but
Impossible.
it's
No.
less than likely. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're sort of in agreement here. I kind of like the team as well. It's just a matter of the whole squad depth. I don't really understand the Cresswell pick either, because he was never going to play for West Ham at all. There's better picks for cheaper, or the same price. You have Greaves at Ipswich. You could have gone with, he has Barco obviously, who's not going to play either. Who's going to go on loan to Sevilla. But like you, for example, you have Woodfors and you have Harvard Bellis, who are 2 players that are going to play regardless. Like, you have 2 players at least that will play. So you're more secure with your defense compared to Kimo, even though it's the same price. So I think that could have been avoided. I don't really understand the Cresswell pick. That's the one big thing I have. Like, I do understand the Quansah and Barco picks because I did the same thing myself. I made that same mistake myself because I thought they both would have a chance to be started for the teams, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. But the Cresswell pick is still like a bit dumbfounding for me when it comes to this team. But other than that, I quite like the team and the decisions that he made going into game week 1. Apart from the captaincy, yeah, I guess the captaincy was the best with Isak in this. Yeah, with this instance, I would have picked Isak as well. It was sort of the thing that I was contemplating with my own team, whether I should have Salah or downgrade him to Jota and then just trust Isak as captain and spread the funds around, which Kimo did. So this is kind of like an alternate team of what I could have had as well myself. But I went with Salah in the end. I'm really happy that I did because he sort of saved my own game week. But we're not going to talk about my team in this podcast because that's going to be on the team selection video for myself posted on Friday. So stay tuned for that if you're looking forward to that as well on this YouTube channel. But let's move on to someone who had a much better game week, and that is the current leader of the FPL Scope Mini League, who's also the manager of the week as the highest scoring manager this week. And that is Jamia Hercules. Not quite sure how to pronounce the name, but 103 points. I had to use the bench boost to get it, but the bench boost with Wissa with 11 points, Peter Porter with 9 points, and then Vicario and Van de Ven with 2 points each, giving him 24 points on the bench boost, which is really nice for the opening game week. Could have been even better. I think the one standout pick that I would have changed in this team would have been Chimikas for 5.0. I think that's just way too pricey for someone that didn't end up starting for Liverpool. If that could have been spread around, if that could have been a 4.5 defender, Mazraoui, for example, who got a lot. Nah, that couldn't have been Mazraoui because he already has 3 Man United players, but could have been a decent pick defensively there, even for 5 million or something else. And that could have helped the team even more.
Yeah.
Even
Again,
more so.
That could have been Livramento or Hall.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, only 2 Newcastle players as well, so that would have made sense for the future game weeks on top of that. So that's my one question with this team, bench boosting game week 1. I've seen some content creators and stuff also bench boost in game week 1 with the view of wildcarding in game week 2, so that might be the case here, but yeah, we'll get to the team eventually, what's going to happen in the future. But 103 points, couldn't really ask for much more. The one big downside to this team, which probably angered this manager as well, was the fact that Spurs conceded pretty late, or in the second half at least, against Leicester, which removed the clean sheet points for Vicario, Pedro and Van de Ven, and it also removed the bonus points from Pedro as well, who would have had 3 bonus points most likely if Spurs had kept the clean sheet there. So I think that's 4, 8, 12, 14 points-ish maybe extra, which would have been absolutely amazing for this game week, but still 103 points. I can't complain. I wish I had this team, even though it doesn't have Salah, doesn't have Haaland, and that's going to be a problem for the next few game weeks unless they choose the wildcard, I think. But yeah, what do you think of the team in general and the approach of doing bench boost game week 1? Has that been something that you've considered ever, or is that just always been just like wait and see, wait for the team value to grow later on in the season and to get more of an overview of the whole season before you use the bench boost?
I quite literally have done that in the past.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. But
How
I
long
did
ago?
that as a joke
As a joke.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, like years ago. And yeah, it ended up going sort of okay because I think my bench got like over 10 points, which is always the aim, I guess. So yeah, I think it like returned like 15 points, and I think I got like just under 100 for the first game week and all this type of stuff. But then it completely screwed me over when a lot of people bench boosted during like
Double game week?
like a double game week. Either it was the one with Liverpool, or was it the one with Liverpool when Sadio Mane he put captain and he was the one who blanked or something weird. It was one of those years.
Okay.
And yeah, you know, like I think it's a viable option simply because of the fact that you want to wild card early doors, and I think, you know, with there not being that many double game weeks and stuff like that, that if you hit it on the head, which this manager did, with an app name like Hercules, yeah, you know, well done. I just think that, you know, obviously for the next couple of weeks, like this team is not sustainable at all. But for what it was, and what it was a bench boost team, congratulations. I mean, you got 2 game weeks worth of points just there, technically. So, you know, me and Kimo combined isn't enough to beat this guy. So yeah, you know, well done. But you really need to look into what you can do next, because it's not sustainable at all. So
Yeah, I mean, especially coming from you, who said that Salah and Haaland are potentially players that you will have the whole season, and this team doesn't have either of them. That's going to be a bit of a problem. So we'll see. There's ways to get Salah at least, I think, for game week 3. If they keep a transfer and then do two transfers next game week, could do that. Obviously, don't need as good of a bench this time around. The good thing about this team is the fact that it has a lot of depth. Doesn't really have to worry about players not playing and stuff. So you could easily downgrade someone to a fodder-like player for the cheapest possible price, and then upgrade someone like Fernandes to Salah, for example, to have one of those heavy hitters, which I think is quite important to have. I think I'm not going to go with Salah and Haaland the whole season, but I think I'm going to go with either or the whole season. Like, I'm never going to have a team without both Salah and Haaland in it for the rest of the season, I think, at least. And currently I have both, and I'm pretty happy with having both as well. So yeah, that's just my thoughts when it comes to this team. Personally, the bench boost thing, I'm not too fond of the bench boost game week 1 thing, but at the same time, I kind of hate the bench boost chip. I always think it's like overdone, it's overthought of. You sort of sacrifice your team in the game weeks before and after to get like a perfect bench boost score. So I'm not the biggest fan of the bench boost chip in general. So I don't really mind it from that perspective, just getting it out of the way. And it worked out in this instance. Wissa with 11 points on the bench would have never played otherwise. But yeah, Tsimikas is the only big like change that I would have done with his team. But at the same time, I didn't really expect Wissa to be like a main guy. I thought Tony would play for Brentford, and that would have made Wissa less of an option. So yeah, in the end, 11 points from Tsimikas and Wissa is pretty good, even though I wouldn't have those players myself, probably, if I did this tactic myself, pretty much. But yeah, that is game week 1. We're putting that in the past. Let's look into the future and the games that are coming up this game week in game week 2. And we have, as usual, done our predictions for the games coming up this game week. And we have a disagreement immediately with Brighton against Man United. I feel like Brighton, yes, the result against Everton was kind of flattering. It could have been more even. It could have even been an Everton win if they were really lucky. I think in the end, Brighton looked pretty good still, though, and they did force a red card on Ashley Young when Mitoma was on his way through as well. Mitoma looked absolutely fantastic, by the way, and has been completely overlooked this preseason. I did mention him a couple times in my preseason content, but at the same time, didn't really consider him enough, I think, because he looked really, really good in the first game, as did Minte on the other side for Brighton. But I think they have more than enough firepower, at least at home, to get at least a draw against Man United. I was even close to putting Brighton as the winners in this game. But you're going with Man United win once again, 2-1 win. That served you well last time. I went with the draw between Man United and Fulham, and Man United actually pulled out the win in the end in that game. So what makes you think Man United away to Brighton can get a result here and get another 3-pointer at the start of the season?
I think the main thing about Man United so far has been that their defenses look better than it's ever done. And I
Ever?
think that not ever, but
Ferdinand
in
and
the
Vidic,
regards, yeah, no, but like
post Ferguson
in
era.
regards post, not even post Ferguson, just in this Ten Hag
Yeah,
run of,
yeah, yeah. I get what you mean. I'm just kidding. Messing around.
it's just looked really shaky. But this was a very good performance from them. Onana looked good. Um, Mazarawi looked great,
Yeah.
and all this type of stuff. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if they concede in this game and all this type of stuff, which is why I have them down as conceding. But I like Xerxes. I think he might get a nod to actually start the game. And yeah, I think just United looked good. I don't think they looked great or amazing, but I think they looked good enough. So I think United might etch the win, and these two tend to have some fiery games against each other, both home and away. We've seen Brighton knock the socks out of United, including Ansu Fati coming either scoring or coming very close to scoring in
Last
the Old
season.
Trafford game. So it can go either way between those two because the matches seem to go absolutely crazy. We had McAllister score very late. We've had Bruno Fernandes score a random penalty very late. It can go either way, and it's usually a fun game. But I just, for whatever reason, seem to believe that United are getting it right now, and I very much like the looks of Mazraoui and
Yeah.
Xerxes, and yeah, it seems like he's getting his Dutch or Dutch adjacent players going. So it'll be cool, and maybe Delict might get a start as well. And if he does, I could see him actually scoring against Brighton. So yeah, I think I don't know what United's done because last season I also put a lot of faith in them when they definitely didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
But this time around, I think it's just because I like what I've seen so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's fair enough. Don't really have to talk too much about that game either. I think, yeah, it's going to be an even and fun game. We've seen it go very differently in the past as well with Brighton. I think 2 seasons ago, they beat them 4-0 in the opener or something crazy like that, or 2-0. I can't remember exactly, but there has been like a major result between them, I think, not too long ago. But anyways, Crystal Palace against West Ham, we've both gone with the same result, 2-1 for Crystal Palace. I feel like West Ham are sort of in transition with Lopetegui coming in, a lot of new players coming in, and I feel like Crystal Palace have enough firepower at home to beat West Ham. Again, this is a game that could go either way. I feel like West Ham could have beaten Aston Villa as well, even though Aston Villa looked better at the start of the game. West Ham came into their own and got the goal, got the equalizer, and could have pushed on for the winner there as well, but ended up losing 2-1 in the end. And I think sort of similar is going to happen with Crystal Palace. Last time these two teams met, Crystal Palace just absolutely trashed West Ham and were up 4-0 really early in the game. I don't think that's going to happen this time, but I think Crystal Palace will win again in this matchup. A pretty even matchup, two teams that are expected to be mid-table or higher this season. How do you think Palace versus West Ham is going to shape up for this Saturday game?
I think Crystal Palace are going to be super disappointed with their opening match and loss that a lot of people expected, and also the fact that, of course, new controversy again that Eze's goal should have counted
Yeah.
because apparently there was no foul to build up and all this type of controversy. So I think, unfortunately for West Ham, who also are disappointed to lose the way they did against Aston Villa, I think this is going to be the sort of Mateta mega match, sort of the Crystal Palace that a lot of people fell in love with towards the end of the season. So, unfortunately, I think them at home are going to just be a little bit too good to deal with. And if West Ham weren't in such a sort of weird transition period with Lopetegui and Paqueta potentially being banned forever, it might look better, but I hope full crew gets to start. I didn't think Antonio was that bad, but I just think that the whole point why he bought Fulkrug is that he is the new starter and etc. So I think he'll add a different dimension to West Ham once he gets up and running as well. But unfortunately, I think hopefully Daichi Kamada scores like 7 times and my FPL player does well, but I just think it's going to be the Eze show, unfortunately.
Yeah, fair enough. Eze looked really good in the first game, so I can easily see him kind of kill West Ham like he has done in the past. So, yeah, 2-1 we both have in that game. We also agree on the result in the Fulham-Leicester game. We don't agree on the scoreline completely. You have Leicester scoring a goal and losing 2-1 against Fulham. I have Fulham beating Leicester 2-0 and not conceding a goal. Maybe that's wishful thinking with me having Robinson in the team. And hopefully Joachim Andersen will be ready for that game. I don't think so. I think he's going to be ready for Game Week 3. But he's on his way back to Fulham, the same club that he was on loan at back in 2019-20, I think, or something like that. But yeah, he's going to be a huge boost to Fulham whenever he comes back. But I think against Leicester, they could still provide the goods and have a clean sheet there. I do have Robinson and I do have Muniz, so that is kind of wishful thinking. 2 goals from Muniz, 2 assists from Robinson, clean sheet. I wish that could happen, but yeah, you have 2-1 to Fulham here as well. What do you make of Fulham's first game and Leicester's first game, and how they stack up against each other in this fixture?
I was more impressed by Fulham, even though Leicester were the team that got the result. But yeah, I just don't count Leicester out ever. You know, they're always a fun bunch and stuff like that. And that's why I think they'll score in the game against Fulham, maybe even take the lead. But I think Fulham are just too good of a unit right now. And Marcus Silva, who I despise is just doing really well and
Yeah.
gotten a really good team out there. And I'm a big fan of Adama Traore as well. So I think this is going to be one of those sort of matches where he gets revenge because it's really funny that Lisandro um, Martinez, who bodied him, went viral and all this type of stuff because like, ooh, he's got all those muscles. But I've seen Martinez do that with Erling Haaland in the
Yeah.
past. So like he's no like for being such a short center back, he's still very strong.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna give Adama so much stick for that, but I know that because it made the rounds and to the point where he had to like Instagram something about it, he'll have that spark, and I think Fulham will feel slightly hard done by just by how late the Xerxes goal was. So yeah, I reckon they're gonna get the win at home.
Yep. Man City against Ipswich, pretty self-explanatory result here. I have 3-0, you have 5-0 for Man City. Again, you did say you could potentially triple captain Haaland in this game. Do you see him, like for me, I feel like there's a good chance of seeing the first Haaland hat-trick of the season here.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same? What do you think about this game in general?
I just think that I just think that Doku looks really good as well. Like there's so many things going right for them. I mean,
Foden's coming back.
Gundogan's coming back
Yeah.
in that regards too. So like I think City are just they're just in such a good mood, and the Chelsea one was pretty comprehensive away from home as well. So yeah, I think Haaland's ready, and I think it's very fun to see him be a bit self-critical because he said like stuff like, "I think I need to get more assists and get everyone else more involved in the goal scoring and stuff like that." Okay, if he's going to do that, he's going to be the main facilitator because all the balls are still going to go towards him, and I think from what I saw from Ipswich, it was very impressive what they did in the first half against Liverpool, but they did that at home and lost. I think it's just going to be a absolute like it will require a sort of Leandro Trossard against City sort of random win for Brighton, random win for Ipswich Town in this rate for them to even stand a chance. Like it's going to require magic for them. Has Erling Haaland, been off pace lately? Yes, but that goal against Sanchez and the way he analyzed it afterwards, saying like, "Oh, I know that what he did last time, and now I had to sort of improvise and do what I did because I knew that he likes to dive early." Like, this is a guy who pays attention to that type of detail as well.
Yeah.
So, and like he said, Pep is constantly on his ass about certain aspects to his game. So I don't hate the captaincy choice, and considering what Salah did to Ipswich, I think it's going to be similar, and it's Haaland. So I reckon they're gonna feed the ball to him a lot. It's if people watched Fresh Prince growing up, pass to Will, it's going to be pass to Erling the entire game. So yeah, I think I'm almost like 70 to 80% locked in with the triple captaincy.
Really?
I am.
Wow.
Like 99.9% sure I'm captaining him.
Yeah.
I am a bit. I do like Salah at home against Brentford too, and also because he burnt me last week. But yeah, man, like this feels good. I think Ipswich played too kamikaze football for it.
Yeah, they did have quite a high line against Liverpool, even in the first half as well. Salah had a couple of runs in behind in the first half as well, where he looked close to scoring if he had just had made a better touch and stuff. So I think there's easily a chance that Haaland scores a lot of goals in this game. And even though Ipswich had like a pretty firm grip on Liverpool in the first half, it was a pretty even game for their standard. Is what I'm trying to say. Liverpool still ended up having the most shots in the box and the most big chances created as well, I think, in that game, or in the whole game week in game week 1. So definitely big chances for Man City here at home against Ipswich. So really excited to see this match, and someone with Haaland as well. Probably not going to triple captain him myself, but captain, like you said, 99.9% sure that I'm going to do that. But at the same time, don't really feel too bad about Salah captain as well, but we'll get to that with Liverpool as the final game as well. Southampton against Nottingham Forest. We've gone with two different results here. I've gone with a 2-0 Nottingham Forest win. You have gone with a 1-1 Southampton Forest draw. Personally, I don't know. I actually have both of these teams going down. I didn't have too much faith in Nottingham Forest before the start of the season. I have slightly more faith in them now. They're actually looking to get in Eddie Nketiah, which I think is kind of weird because I think both Chris Wood and Taiwo Awoniyi are looking like really good strikers. So I don't really understand why they would buy a third one. Nketiah is good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's that big of an upgrade either over those two strikers. So yeah, that's a bit of a tangent anyway. But for some reason, just feel decently good about Nottingham Forest in this game. They're also linked with Alex Moreno as a left back, and for 4.5, he could be a really good left back, pushing Ola Aina over to the right as well, potentially. Or if they want to play with Nico Williams at the right still. But yeah, I just have some faith in Nottingham Forest. I feel like Southampton, I mean, they have a lot to avenge after the Newcastle game, but at the same time, didn't really give me confidence that they managed to just bottle a game where they had one man more for like 60 minutes. And again, they have Alex McCarthy in goal. You saw that against Newcastle. He messed up once again. I don't understand why they don't get a new goalkeeper. But anyways, that will probably happen, hopefully for them, before the end of the transfer window. But yeah, just have a slight edge for Nottingham Forest in this game without really knowing why. But you have a draw here. What do you think of this game and how it will unfold?
Yeah, I think I was really impressed with what Southampton showed against Newcastle, and that's the only reason why I think they might pull off a Spurs Leicester sort of result, in the sense of like their first match at home, they'll do everything that they can to go away with a point. And Nottingham Forest were very up and down against Bournemouth and probably should have maybe won, but that's sort of it. I'm not entirely mega convinced by Nottingham Forest, and I think Southampton impressed enough away from home that if they can stick to a similar game plan, they can at least escape with a draw. But don't get me wrong, I think it's more likely that it's a draw or Nottingham Forest win than it is for Southampton to win, simply because I think offensively they've been a bit but a cheeky little draw, yeah, I think they're able to do that, yeah.
Yep. Let's move on to Spurs against Everton. And last time around in Game Week 1, you had faith in Everton to beat Brighton, and they ended up losing 3-0. This time, you've actually gone with the same result now. Everton losing 3-0 to Spurs. Spurs had a bit of a disappointing Game Week 1 against Leicester, but at the same time, for 60 minutes or until Jamie Vardy scored in that game, they looked like world beaters. Like, they looked like a really, really good team that just couldn't score and put the final nail in the coffin for Leicester, and that ended up hurting them in the end. But I'm going with a 3-1 Spurs win here as well. I think they look pretty good. I think this will be probably the game where Solanke gets his first goal for Spurs. I think he was unlucky not to get a goal last time around, and I think this might also be, like you said, the Son sort of revenge game where he shows why he is still a really good player. Remember last season as well, he started off the season with a blank, I think, in the first game, and then in the second game, I think he scored a hat-trick or something like that against Burnley at home. Or away, I can't remember exactly. I think it might have been away, actually. But either way, he looked like not too good of a pick in the first game week, and then he just all of a sudden turned on the boosters and got a hat-trick. And that's something that Son can do, and that's something that should be encouraging for people like you and Kimo that have Son already in place. Should give him this one more chance to prove himself, and I think he can do that. But obviously, you're not hoping for that yourself. As an Everton fan, you hope that Everton can knock back Spurs and do something similar to what Leicester did, or potentially even win the game like Leicester could have done as well. But yeah, you have Everton losing quite decisively in this game. Is that based off of what you saw against Brighton? Is it based off of just the general vibes, not having Brantwaite? What do you feel about Everton and their chances against Everton or chances against Spurs in this game?
I think dissolve the club and my life would be so much easier. But that being said, I just don't think that Everton currently have what it takes to win against Spurs away. Could they get a cheeky draw like we've done in the past? Maybe, but I think Spurs are even more angry that they weren't able to beat a newly promoted team. So who to take it out on, but a Everton side that has been fluctuating up and down, and it's not going to surprise me if during a tough run of fixtures we're going to end up winning every single game. So for that reason alone, Everton are a bit slow to get things going. I think just Spurs are going to walk all over us. I'll be shocked if we get a point. I'll be even more shocked if we win. And if we do win, it's going to be thanks to Calvert-Lewin, who I'm probably going to bench, which will piss me off FPL wise. But in terms of actual football, I would be delighted. So, yeah, I just think we're going to get completely walked all over. And no Ashley Young, which is a blessing in disguise, in my opinion. I do not
Yeah.
understand why we gave him an additional year. And I hate myself and I hate him. So, yeah, it's not great, but yeah, I just think that Spurs are going to walk all over Everton, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe we'll end up with a cheeky little 4-3 Everton win with a Son hat-trick. You never know. But the next game I think is very interesting. The fact that we have a very different result. I've gone with a 3-1 Arsenal win. I think Arsenal looked really good in the first game week. I don't think Aston Villa looked quite as good against West Ham. Easily could have been a West Ham win in that game. So I think Arsenal will actually show their worth in this game and actually have like a statement game where they can show that the team that we didn't manage to beat, that we actually lost twice against last season, we can actually beat this time around in Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa are sort of there for the taking with Watkins still getting back into shape and stuff, and Arsenal looking really good. So I go with a 3-1 Arsenal win, but you've gone with an Aston Villa win again, winning for the third time in a row, I think, in the league against Arsenal. Why is that? What makes you go with that result? Is it based off of last season, or is it based off of what you saw in Game Week 1, or is it a mixture of both? Like, what makes you go with a cheeky Aston Villa win here at home to Arsenal?
It's like I definitely before I sent it was gonna write actually 3-1 to Arsenal, but then I went, you know what? I think this is Ollie Watkins, who apparently is an Arsenal fan, seems to like play some of his best football against Arsenal.
Yeah.
So I think he'll be in a better place physically and mentally when he plays against them. And I think just them at home at Villa Park, they're a different beast. I think there's a lot of storyline sort of related things there in terms of Martinez against his former club, this whole Unai Emery versus Arteta thing that's been making the rounds on football Twitter and just social media in general. Some people claim that Unai Emery is the better manager. Others claim that Arteta is the better manager. I think it's a bit unfair to compare the two simply because Unai Emery's had a like a longer managerial career anyways. But I will be honest, I am more impressed by what he's done with Aston Villa last season than Arsenal. In regards to I mean they went to the final game day to almost win the league and etc. But at the end of the day, Unai Emery took Aston fucking Villa to the Champions League. So it is very very impressive, and he's a four-time Europa League winner as well because he's a beast like that and putting Spanish football on the map as he did. Thank you for the coefficient, love you. But I just think that they'll have the slight edge over Arsenal. I don't know why. I don't think I was way more impressed with Arsenal at the Emirates than I was with Aston Villa's win against West Ham. But again, it's a home game. I think that's gonna, first home game of the season as well. They're gonna go into it guns blazing, and I think they'll come out with a win.
Fair enough. In regards to the Emery Arteta debates, you are an Everton fan, but you're also a Barcelona fan. So, say Hansi Flick leaves Barcelona after a year, and you can get a new manager, and the choice is between Emery and Arteta. Who do you choose as a new Barcelona
Arteta,
manager?
100%.
Okay.
Arteta plays my brand of football and all this type of stuff. But do I think that Unai Emery is still the better manager? Probably. But I think that's a brand issue thing than that in regards to
So specifically Barca, because Arteta has been in Barca's system before.
yeah, and all this type of stuff. So I think it's just system wise, it makes more sense to have Arteta because he wants to play the right type of football and wants to pickpockets to steal things from his players to keep them all alert or whatever.
All
It's real
connected with the
stupid.
light and all that stuff.
I love that shit, but I think our current Barcelona needs that because they're all clueless fucking idiots. So, I mean, not everyone. Lamine Yamal and Pedri know what they're doing, and Gavi, and yeah, I love that young core. But
Firmino.
I personally think that Emery's obviously achieved and done more, but that's a longevity thing, right?
I mean, Mourinho has achieved more, but I would still pick Arteta over Mourinho currently. So
I guess.
yeah, that's my whole contribution to that debate. I personally would just choose Arteta as a West Ham fan as well, or even as a Barcelona fan. I would choose Arteta over Emery every time, but still a lot of I'm very impressed by what Emery has done with Aston Villa, and he's turned that club around, and I think they still have what it takes to still fight for Champions League spots this season, even though they have a lot of Champions League matches to fend off with as well this season. Next match is Bournemouth against Newcastle, and we both have a Newcastle win here. I have 2-1 for Newcastle, pretty even game. I think Bournemouth are decent enough. They're getting Evan Nilsson now as the striker, so he might start in this game. That would be interesting to see. He's been pretty good at Porto the last few seasons. Decent goal scoring record there. Newcastle, I think, as well, are sort of there for the taking. They did get 3 points, even though they didn't really deserve it against Southampton. And Fabian Schär is going to be out for this game. Botman's already injured. They're going to have to play Byrne and someone else at centre back. So yeah, I think they are sort of there for the taking, but I think as well they have just more quality across the board, especially with Isak up front there. So I think I'm going to go with a Newcastle win 2-1 here. You go into 3-1 Newcastle win. So yeah, what do you think about the strength between these two teams as well? Do you think it's going to be an even game? Do you think Newcastle, do you figure that it's going to be like pretty close and Newcastle get the 3-1 win in the end, or do you think Newcastle will just basically coast into a 3-0 lead and just concede a late goal? Or like, how do you feel the 3-1 is going to play out?
I reckon it'll be like 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. They chase for it 3-1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Let's move on to Wolves Chelsea then, I guess. The Pedro Neto derby. He just left Wolverhampton to go to Chelsea. I wasn't too impressed with Chelsea, but they did face Man City, so you can't really judge them too harshly as well for that game. I think Wolves as well created a couple chances against Arsenal, surprisingly, from their pressing and stuff. I'm still a pretty big fan of Jørgen Strand Larsen up front there from Norway, of course, just like me. And Chelsea, I think, are still... we talk about West Ham being sort of like in a transition stage, and Chelsea are just permanently in a transition stage because they keep switching out players, they keep switching out managers. They are the biggest banter club in the Premier League, in my opinion. So I'm going with a 1-1 draw here. I think Wolves at home have what it takes to get a point at least against Chelsea. But you're going with a 2-1 Chelsea win. What do you feel about Chelsea's chances in general and just how they are handling things with Enzo Maresca now as the main guy in charge, and Cole Palmer, who you apparently are referencing?
Yeah, but this for some reason feels like such a Cole Palmer sort of match. So
Yeah.
and I think Nkunku will grab himself a cheeky little goal. So I still think that regardless of Chelsea's quality, possession wise, they look pretty good against City. I think there's a lot of positives to be taken from a 2-0 loss, which is crazy to me because Chelsea of old should be competing in every game, right? And are Premier League champions sort of caliber and Champions League winning caliber and all this type of stuff. Like Chelsea of the last 20 years or so, win big titles and whatnot. But the Chelsea as of this kamikaze, Tuchel, Conte, just deleting everyone after a season, and including Pochettino and probably Maresca next season, and Graham Potter and all this stuff. Like it's just been a crazy amount of turnover, and it's clearly affecting them. But I just believe in Cole Palmer. Like the guy is just too good not to get returns again, and I think this is the place where he does it. I also think that again, Nkunku is gonna show a little bit of what he's got. I think Juan Felix could be a really fun super sub for them as well. So I think Chelsea will go away with the win here. I think Wolves look good against Arsenal at times, but yeah, I think Chelsea have to sort of get the ball rolling, and I think this is where they'll do it.
Yeah, fair enough. I can't really complain too much about that either. I think if I had to go one way, I would still go with a Chelsea win, but I think it's going to be a pretty even game, so we'll see what happens in that game. The final game is Liverpool against Brentford. I go with a 2-0 modest Liverpool win here. I think Brentford looked pretty good last game week, and Mbeumo and stuff have some qualities there. But at the same time, they're playing Liverpool, who looked really good against Ipswich and are looking like a free-flowing, really attacking team. So you go with a 4-1 Liverpool win here, which I think is not outside the realms of possibilities, but I think it's a bit unfair on Brentford to lose by this much in this game against Liverpool. But you obviously think differently. You think Salah could have another huge game potentially here. And that's why you haven't completely gone away from captaining him rather than Haaland. Could you see yourself triple captaining Salah in this game, or do you think that is just like for Haaland against Ipswich? That's pretty much it.
I think this is the most tempting for Haaland and Salah in regards to this is this divisive sort of thing where there are loads of teams that have either or, not both, and all this type of stuff. So that's what makes it. Two captains would have been so sick for this game week, but and that should honestly be the mystery. Like whatever this bullshit mystery chip is, two captains from different like Scandi fantasy leagues and some other places. That should be what the thing is, right? And I would have so two captain in this game week because I think it's fun that some people don't have Salah, some people don't have Haaland. So in these positions where people don't have them, triple captain their asses. Like, and especially if it's a good game day as well. But I agree with you. I think Brentford are a lot better than I'm giving them credit for here. But I think it's just because Liverpool are really scary against Ipswich, and this was them sort of half clicking things together. Them at Anfield, it's going to be a completely different beast. So that's why I think they could run riot. But I've said they run riot with a goal conceded, whilst I said City are going to fucking ram a stick up by Ipswich's ass. So I still think it'll be
Haaland captain.
Haaland captain and potentially triple captain if I'm not such a gigantic chicken shit. So I think I might do it to also catch up with people and stuff. And I think it's just a good game week to do it. I think this could very easily be the game where he blanks after 70 minutes, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, you've always been a bit more tempted to captain in a single game week than I have. You did it with Harry Kane a couple seasons back as well. And they won like 5-0 and he scored like one goal, which was kind of unlucky. I think they destroyed Bournemouth like
5-0 against Burnley at home.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone else who did everything. Oh, the Harry Kane, like some bullshit goal. You're like, I don't give a shit, man. You should have scored a hat trick in that game.
Yeah.
So, I think surely the double game weeks aren't going to be that crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean, like you said previously, there's going to be less double game weeks. And like you said, there's also a mystery chip that might be a chip that is better used for a double game week. So, Man City and Ipswich this early in the season, no rotation risk with the Champions League. We know Haaland is sort of like he scored in the first game, so he's in a good goal-scoring mood. But at the same time, he had so much more to give. He has so much more to give in general. So I don't think it's the worst triple captaincy. Like if you want to go with a triple captaincy chip in a single game week, this is probably the best game week to do it. So yeah, I'm personally going to wait myself, but I wouldn't really begrudge anyone going for it this time, which I don't think I would have said in any other previous seasons, but just because there are fewer double games this time, and we also have the mystery chip, which could be used if it's, for example, a double captaincy chip, or not double captaincy, but double captains chip. That could also be used in a double game week, and then you don't have enough double game weeks to use all the chips in, basically. So yeah, I don't really mind it too much. I'm not going to do it personally at this moment in time, but yeah, really an interesting thing to think about, and we're going to get more into it when it comes to the teams as well. But before we get into the plans for Game Week 2, let's go into more of the future outlook for all the teams and which teams have the best fixtures. And Chelsea are actually top of the fixture ticker now with pretty much no super tough games coming up. Wolves away is probably one of the tougher ones. Crystal Palace at home. Palace have been, I don't know, it's a bit tough to judge Palace, and especially if they're losing Joachim Andersen now before they can potentially replace him as well. That could be a decent game for Chelsea offensively. Bournemouth away, West Ham away. Two teams that can be tricky on their day, but two teams that also can concede quite a lot of goals on their day. Brighton at home and Nottingham Forest at home. Really good fixtures in general from Chelsea. So the question is now with Nkunku as well. How much faith do you have in Nkunku starting for Chelsea? I know how much you love Nkunku as a player, but with Chelsea and all the players that they've signed, with Joao Felix now, Pedro Neto coming in as the left winger, Enzo Fernandez being made captain and playing as the number 10 last time around, how much faith do you have in Nkunku being the starter and playing 60 plus minutes, potentially 90 up to 90 minutes per game? How much faith do you have in Nkunku now after seeing what happened in Game Week 1 where he got subbed off after 58 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine for them to be a bit cautionary with him, just because this is a guy who's had a relapse of injuries and stuff like that when they pushed it too far. So for me, like, oh, he got subbed off against City. Like, who gives a shit? We didn't really expect him to go crazy anyways. Yes, Rodri was out, la-di-la, but it's City. Like, I would get more pissed off if this happens against a Southampton or Bournemouth. Like,
or Wolves.
Yeah. So them away from home against Wolves, like, I still expect him to get 60 odd minutes. Like, and I could even see him scoring before then. So I think people need to relax with him. I think people are too worried simply because of what happened with match day 1. Like, is Paul Felix better than Nkunku? Fuck no. And is that the case? You know, like, is that the thing we're meant to be worried about? I think Nicholas Jackson, if anyone's in most trouble with Paul Felix being there, because it could potentially make Nkunku into a false 9, because at the end of the day, he is more of a goal threat than Nicholas Jackson is. And I still think Nicholas Jackson can come good. Like Tim said, he was just living offside against City, but he probably should have scored in that game. Yeah. So I think Nkunku is going to be fine. I think, yes, he might be a bit of a minutes risk currently, but I think that's just because they're trying to be a bit careful with them. I think once, like the Conference League or whatever the hell that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. They play Conference League against Servette from Switzerland, and it's a qualifying match to get into the Conference League, and they are heavy favorites. So it will be really interesting to see if Nkunku plays there. If he plays 90 minutes in that game all of a sudden, then your argument about him being like rested and stuff sort of falls by the wayside. So it's going to be really interesting to see how many minutes, if at all, he plays in that game, which is on Thursday. So that will give us an indication going into the Wolves game. But I think regardless with Nkunku, you have to give him this Wolves game and see how he performs, how many minutes he plays, how Chelsea managed to do the tactics, whether they played Pedro Neto from start, whether they do a difference with their midfield and stuff. I feel like you can just give Nkunku this game to sort of make up for Game Week 1, and that's how you're going to decide as well. But yeah, I sort of interrupted you there. Was there anything else you wanted to add when it comes to Nkunku?
I just think that his preseason alone and basically the praise, and like, I know preseason is different to the main season once all the players get involved and all this type of stuff, but a lot of the ball was going through him and he delivered. So I think people need to relax and temper expectations. Like, I'm pretty sure Haaland had already scored by the time Nkunku got subbed off. It was like 1-0, right?
Yep.
I reckon a part of them, because I think Kovacic then scored like a little bit way later. But I think it was just more like, this is not the game to risk him 90 minutes already. Yep. So I think people just need to temper their expectations simply over one game. I think freak more out over the fact that Quansah got subbed off after 45 minutes than Nkunku did before 60.
Yeah, and that's actually a pretty nice segue to the next thing that I was going to talk about, and that is Fulham and the fact that they're getting Joachim Andersen now, and also the fact that that strengthens the capabilities of Anthony Robinson, the left back, who's 4.5 for Fulham. He is a pretty popular pick to replace Quansah for those of you who have sold Quansah already. You sold Quansah already, but you did not opt for Robinson. But how close were you to picking him, and why did you not go with him in the end?
I have no idea why I didn't pick him. I just thought Rico Lewis was the more fun pick, to be honest. So
Yeah.
I also just hate Marcus Silva. So I think that was partly like, nah, they'll concede in this game. But the Leicester game is easily a game where they don't concede and Robinson actually gets an assist or something. So I could potentially, I could potentially make Mikolenko, for example, Robinson from next week or something. Maybe not against Crystal Palace, but like that's the thing. Like, or sorry, against Ipswich. Oh no, against Ipswich, yeah, maybe. But I want them for the Leicester games. Me, I don't know. Anyways, like I think the Ipswich game could be easily a fun game, but again, Ipswich against Fulham, that could maybe see Ipswich finally getting a attacking like their sort of kamikaze style of football to come in. I think the game against West Ham, they're going to concede. I think they're going to concede against Newcastle. I could easily, obviously, they're going to get absolutely hammered in game week 7, and
Yeah.
I think Forest could be a little bit of a up and down. But I like Leicester. Like the first 5 games, game from game week 2 to game week 6, they could potentially get clean sheets in all these games, but we know what Newcastle are capable of. We know that Nottingham Forest are decent-ish at home, and West Ham are West Ham. At the end of the day, I think even if they might not win a game, they can
Most
still
likely you can
score
yeah.
against anyone. So yeah, so I think I take it with like a pinch of salt. I think Fulham are really annoying when it comes to clean sheets. I think Leno is a great goalkeeper, and I think Fulham did such a good job just like Aston Villa did, of fleecing Arsenal off a good goalkeeper. Yes, these goalkeepers didn't for whatever. I mean, Martinez worked. I
Yeah.
still don't understand
Yeah, me neither.
what
Replacing him with
happened there.
Ramsdale. I don't really understand that.
Yeah, who they hate. Let's be honest, if they really like Ramsdale, they'd never have gone for David Raya.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think like Fulham have a good unit, and especially with Joachim Anderson coming in, I think they're even better than before. I mean, that's such a upgrade from Tosin Adebayo, who Chelsea claim is the greatest center back of all time.
He's not even in the squad for the
get,
Conference League game now.
they switched that.
Oh, they did that.
Apparently
Okay.
Okay. Apparently it was an admin error. So
Okay, fair enough.
It's been fixed.
Fair enough.
But yeah, like apparently he was only bought because of his height. So what's the point in having him and Disasi if Wesley Fofana and Cole are the two that's going to play? But yeah, okay.
That's Chelsea for you.
Either way, I think Fulham are a bit. I just don't trust them with clean sheets. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But I do recognize that they have the potential to get the clean sheets too. So I think I'm extremely jealous of people who are going into this game week with Robinson and potentially Smith Rowe as well.
Yeah, and Muniz. Don't forget about Muniz.
Of course.
But am I sort of reading the tea leaves correctly here? The fact that you went with Lewis over Robinson, it seems like more of a short-term pick with like the Ipswich kind of thing. Am I right in thinking that maybe you're angling towards an early wildcard, or is that too early to tell for you?
Yeah, I think I am angling towards a wild card, but I also just think that if Rico Lewis has like cemented himself at right back, which I feel like he might have, because I don't think like Kyle Walker's rumored with a lot of
he had a poor season last season, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I also think that the main thing that Kyle Walker's known for, his speed, is starting to dwindle a little bit. So he's now more prone to making mistakes, and I think if Rico Lewis doesn't get a chance now, he's never going to get a chance at City either. So,
I still think he has some more time, but I think, like I said, it is his time as well. He could be a really good player for them, and there is a lot of upside there if he makes that right back spot his own, and he's that attacking player as we saw in the first game week. He's going to be the best value defender in the game by far, like at 4.5. So I kind of like the upside pick there for you, but you do have also some issues with your defense with really cheap defenders. But I kind of like the upside pick, and I kind of like the punt there, even though I'm also a huge fan of Robinson, obviously, because I have him in my own team. But with an earlier wildcard potentially in mind, I know a lot of people are looking towards wildcarding in Game Week 6 potentially. Some people are looking at wildcarding in Game Week 4. I might actually do that myself as well. I don't think the Rico Lewis's pick is too bad, even though I probably would have gone with Robinson myself, but I'm more of a conservative manager and you're more of a expressive, wondrous type of manager. So it kind of fits your play style. So I kind of like the Rico Lewis pick, honestly. Even though I also really like Robinson pretty much. Anything else that sticks out to you with this fixture ticker? I mean, I don't know. Anything that sticks out to you? I don't really have anything else to go off of.
I mean, I really want Watkins. I had him game week 1
Yeah.
originally in my original draft and stuff like that. And once Aston Villa's tough fixture against Arsenal goes away, it is looking like Flavor Town to me. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm 100%.
Looking at
Because
him.
yeah, the truth is I am probably considering an early-ish wild card, and if I do, Watkins is 100% in the draft positions for weeks later. And yeah, man, if Cole Palmer starts making the moves, then maybe
Yeah.
Son out for him might be the move, and maybe if Nkunku isn't the player that we know that he can be, then that could potentially end up being a, I mean, just looking by the sort of fixture ticker, you got the Smith Rose, you got potentially Doku if he's now the starting left winger as well.
Yeah.
Like I really like the looks of Doku, and I'm like half considering getting rid of Nkunku simply for Doku. But again, that seems like a Pep Roulette disaster if I do that. So, but I really like the look of Doku against Chelsea, and I also think that this Ipswich game is going to be where he wins me some triple captain penalties. So yeah, let's go.
Fair enough. Yeah, Palmer is actually the one thing that I wanted to mention as well. Like you mentioned earlier, this could be the Palmer game against Wolverhampton, and I can easily see that from an FPL perspective as well, where he just reminds everyone that he's still the guy that got the most points last season, despite starting the season really late and being like 5.0 last season. So he could really remind people why he should be in your team, and a lot of people with Son could potentially move on to him. I think, but there are a lot of good players in that price bracket, including Son, who, like I said, could potentially score a hat-trick all of a sudden against Everton like it did last season, early on in the season. So yeah, some interesting 10.5-ish picks there. That's why I'm sort of leaning towards breaking up the Haaland Salah thing, because I kind of want to have more than just one out of those guys, from Palmer, Saka, Foden, those types of players. So yeah. But anyways, that is the fixture ticker and matches coming up for all the teams. Let's go into your current plans. And we did already talk about the transfer that you have made. That is Quansah to Lewis. Don't really have much faith in Quansah starting this game after what happened against Ipswich. So it made sense to sell him before he went down in price. And you managed to do that as well. And you went for Lewis like we just talked about. So yeah, we don't really need to go too much into that either. The one thing other than that to talk about, obviously we've talked about the triple captaincy thing with Haaland as well. We can also touch on that a little bit more. But the other thing is who you're going to start. You have Kamada against West Ham at home. You have Murphy against Bournemouth away after you got rested sort of inadvertently last time around. And then you have Calvert-Lewin away to Spurs as well, like that you mentioned that you would probably bench. So is that what you're leaning towards, or how confident are you in who you're going to bench for this upcoming game week?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get some early murmurs in regards to who's starting and stuff because we got random leaks early doors, and I reckon we'll get some early leaks too. If I hear something that I don't like, then I'll start accordingly.
Yep.
I think one of the main things for me is just also that I think I have to look at upside. So I think I could potentially bench my Everton players and just go with Murphy and Harwood Bellis
Yeah.
to start, and maybe even go for Wout Feisch because I think that maybe Leicester could get away with something against Fulham, but I think Southampton at home seems like against Nottingham Forest side that's kind of been wonky. This is the sort of game where I have to target, and I think this is why I'm glad I'm not Emo because I have two center backs that who are 4.0 and who actually play almost the whole game. So yeah, I think benching the Everton players and starting Murphy and then making a decision between Harvard Bellis or Feisch is going to be what I'd do, or potentially getting Anthony Robinson in for a -4 early doors just to bite the bullet and be like, look, man, I fucked up. Everton sucks. So, yeah. Uh, but I think it's just going to be the Everton benching, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that makes sense as well. Benching Calvert-Lewin for Murphy and benching Mikolenko for Harvard Bellis. It seems like what I would do as well, I think, with your team. Then we have the triple captaincy thing. We've talked about that quite a bit in this podcast already. You said 70%-ish for Haaland now. Has anything changed between the start of the podcast and now in terms of how willing you are to use the triple captaincy chip?
No.
So
I'm
still
pretty dead certain that I'm going to do it.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how many content creators who say that they're going to triple captain him or are thinking about it will actually pull the trigger and do it. So I'm going to be really interested to see if you actually do it with Haaland. But for me, I wouldn't really begrudge you any other way. You could triple captain him if you feel like that on the day. It might change on Saturday, and you might feel less inclined to do it. But either way, I think you are in pretty good hands whether you captain him or triple captain him. I think he has a decent chance to get a decent score regardless. Yeah, that's pretty much your team. You did mention Kimo's team and his potential issues with defense, and that's the main thing here as well. Quansah has already gone down in price to 4.4. He has 0 in the bank, so you can't upgrade Quansah to anyone that's worth 4.5. He would have to downgrade him to someone like Harvard Bellis, for example, or potentially do Crestfold or Harvard Bellis. Or he would just have to hope that Quansah is actually going to start next game again. Because he did start for a reason against Ipswich. There's a reason why Arne Slot picked him to be the starter against Ipswich. Obviously, he's not like completely out of the picture for starting, but seeing as how Liverpool looked so much better in the second half, I think it's unlikely that Quansah will start. But who knows? The other thing with him is obviously Pedro Porro. If we get indications on Friday that Pedro Porro is going to be out, would you potentially look to sell Pedro Porro, especially if he's out for like a couple of weeks? But also seeing Spurs, if you go back to the fixture ticker, they have a nice fixture now against Everton. But after that, Newcastle away, Arsenal at home, 2 really tough matches to keep clean sheets in. Brentford, who we saw score 2 goals against Crystal Palace, Man United away, Brighton away. I mean, there's not that many good chances to get clean sheets. And again, maybe you don't have Pedro Porro for clean sheets. Maybe you want those attacking returns. But if he's injured as well, could you potentially look to sell Pedro Porro, and who would you bring in for the money that you have at Pedro Porro? Because he's obviously 5.5, so you have some extra money in the bank. You can go for someone worth 5.5 or someone worth 5.0 or someone worth 4.5. So what do you reckon? If Pedro Porro is named to be out, what would you do in Kimo's case here?
Are you willing to hear me out?
Yes.
I think you should go for a cheeky Reece James.
He's suspended.
Yeah, but not straight away. I mean, like...
No, but that's what I'm asking, straight away.
Okay, straight away. Okay, fine. If you're going to go straight away, then fine. You know what? Unless you don't go Reece James.
He's injured as well, by the way.
Hey, he's back now.
Is
he's
he?
apparently just suspended. So,
Injured.
So for
Malaga all the
me,
way.
I mean, you could go for Levi Colwill for 4.5 as well. I mean, I think Chelsea have a big run of fixtures, and he is a easy pick. You could potentially get a Newcastle defender in just to shore that up as well, and then you still have a lot of money left in the bank. So it just depends on what he's looking for. I personally think that Reece James long term could be a fun pick, and I am 100% considering him with the sort of easy run of fixtures. But if you want to play it sensible, then you would have to target the sort of maybe a Robinson just to play it safe, maybe maybe a Chelsea defender simply because Chelsea do have the fixtures as an upside now. City was the really tough game to get rid of, and then it's all systems go.
Yeah. Personally, I don't think I'm going to have Reece James ever in NFL. I think he would have to play like 10 games in a row for me to trust him still. and he would still have to provide some goals and stuff, sadly, because he is an amazing player. So obviously if he's back in full force, if he's back to what we know of him in the past before he got these injury problems all the time, obviously he's a fantastic pick. But I just don't think I could trust him for a long time, because he just keeps getting injured all the time pretty much. And he's also suspended now for the next 2 game weeks, I think, game week 2 and game week 3. So he's still someone in the future. But personally, with Poro, if he's injured now for a couple of weeks, Kimo has to do a transfer, I think, especially with the money that he'll get from it as well, potentially. But I would also potentially look into someone like Munoz, for example, at Palace. I think it looked really offensive last time around, and Palace don't have the best matches. That's the downside. But Munoz is another player, kind of like Poro, who doesn't potentially need clean sheets all the time to get the points, because he can get a lot of assists and goals as well, potentially. But other than that, I think Robinson is another good pick there for 4.5, and we'll get Kimo another $1 million to spend on someone like Cresswell and upgrade him to someone at 4.5 as well, and have someone in the bank even after that. So I think that could be what Kimo can do. When it comes to Quansah, probably just start him and hope for the best. You could also, if Fedoporo is fit and there are indications that Quansah is not going to start, could also downgrade or switch out Cresswell to someone like Harvard Bellis, which should have been done from game 1 onwards already, but I think Harvard Bellis against Nottingham Forest at home seems like a decent player to play. So I think you're in a decent spot when it comes to him, at least. When it comes to captaincy with Kimo, obviously it's going to be Haaland as well. With him, I don't think he has given me any indication that he's going to triple captain Haaland. He usually likes to triple captain in the final game week of the season anyway, which is a single game week, but it is also a game week where you usually get a lot of goals, and it has worked out for him in the past. So that could potentially be what he is going to do. And I think that's also a pretty good argument against using the triple captaincy chip this time around as well, because I think the final game week of the season, you have more of a overview of who's going to need to score goals and who's going to be just pumping forward to get a lot of goals in the final game of the season, which is usually a really high scoring game week as well. So if you're not going to use the triple captaincy chip in a double game week, then I think the final game week of the season could potentially be the next best thing, even though the fixtures aren't potentially the best for the likes of Haaland and Salah. I haven't really checked the fixtures, but those are just some thoughts when it comes to Haaland triple captaincy, again, which we've talked about extensively in this podcast. Let's move on to the manager of the week current plans, because this is a pretty interesting team, very different from what we see usually. And the big downside to this team is the fact that it doesn't have Haaland or Salah, and there's no real way of getting one of them easily either. So that could potentially lead me to going with the wildcard, but I'm going to talk about that, or we're going to talk about that towards the end of the podcast, like after we've talked about the other potential stuff you can do. Because if you trust Jota to be the captain, starting against Brentford as a striker, which could happen, like he could score a lot of goals. He was close to getting a brace last time around with a header that just went wide, really close to getting a 2 goals in that game. If you do trust him as captain or Trent as captain, rather than having Salah or Haaland, and you don't want to do the wildcard already, then there are some potential other things you can do. Chimika's out seems like a reasonable idea. He's 5.0. Again, shouldn't have been in the team in the first place, but could be worth it, especially if Pedroporo is injured. And at the same time, triple Spurs against Everton. That could easily go wrong if they concede, obviously. Even though Everton have looked a bit lackluster offensively with Calvert-Lewin and those guys up front. So probably not the worst game week to have tripled up on anyone, but it is Spurs, and they usually concede even against Leicester when they were dominating the game for 60 minutes. The other thing is potentially doing Tsimikas Lewis, because I think this team is close to doing a wildcard anyway, kind of like your team. So I actually think Lewis rather than Robinson might be the best case for this team in particular, especially seeing as it has a lot of depth already. Maybe not in defense with Tsimikas and Zinchenko, who are kind of like iffy, but I think it's better to go a bit more short-term here with Lewis, potentially, as well. Or you have the option to wildcard, which I think potentially is the best option, which might be also the tactic that this manager has set in place before Game Week 1. A lot of people have done the bench boost Game Week 1, wildcard Game Week 2 tactic, and that could be the case for this manager as well. But looking at this team overall, the captaincy choice here as well, what would you do if you were in this person's shoes, both without wildcarding and if you're wildcarding, which we'll get to eventually. But first and foremost, if you're not wildcarding, what would you do with this team and one free transfer and the current squad that they have?
I mean, I'm expecting this guy to wild card very soon, if not straight away.
Yeah.
So I think if you're not wild carding, Jota as captain, Lewis in, because you're just going for it anyways. You might as well go for it in a fun, short term way like Rick Lewis. And if you're wild carding, 100% hold on it. Like this is the time to have hold on.
Okay. Very
Yeah.
interesting that you say that, because I'm not sure if you've seen my weekly wildcard draft or not,
Hmm.
because I have actually removed Haaland from the weekly wildcard drafts. You just said that you would go for him entirely, but I think there are just so many good players, and I think Salah is good enough and has better fixtures over the long term. I think Haaland's going to bang this game week. I think he's going to get the most points, but I think Salah is still a great captaincy choice for game week 2 and game week 3 against Man United potentially, and obviously game week 4 and game week 5 as well against Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth at home. So I have actually dropped Haaland, but I was really, really hesitant to do it. But it's just the fact that I can get Jota, I can get Saka, and I can get Trent basically, or Guardiola in this case, in this team, and still have Havertz, Solanke, Isak, just so many options when you drop Haaland. I think that's just the allure of it all. But you have been going for Haaland as triple captain this game week, so, and you also just said that you would definitely have Haaland on a wildcard. So how crazy is it to go without Haaland on the wildcard? Am I completely wrong with this wildcard draft suggestion, or am I on to something slightly? Like, how do you feel about the team without Haaland?
I mean, I think this is the game week to have him. So to suggest a long-term plan, sure, but nah, man, you gotta have Haaland. Yeah, like I think Haaland, well, got a goal against Chelsea, then plays Ipswich, then plays West Ham, then plays Brentford at home. Then it's a bit difficult against Arsenal at home, where
Yeah.
he will score again. Then it's a game against Newcastle away from home. That is a difficult match. And then it's Fulham, Wolves, Southampton, Bournemouth, Brighton. Yeah, Spurs difficult. Yeah, Liverpool difficult. Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace, and then yeah, then it gets like a little bit up and down again. But I think it's a bit short-sighted to not consider Haaland as well just because he's playing Arsenal.
I would definitely bring back Haaland after the Arsenal, not New, or after the Arsenal and Newcastle games. That's when I'm looking to bring him back in, because that's when Salah's fixtures get a bit more difficult, and I think that's just the pathway that I've looked at for this season. I think I'm just going to switch between Salah and Haaland mostly. Maybe I'll go back to doubling up and having both of them when I have more team value later on in the season, and if they have good fixtures at the same time. But I feel like you can switch them
I
just
feel like
about
they
from now
do,
onwards.
especially until game week 4. They both have, and Haaland had
They do.
the.
They do have great fixtures, but I also just have a lot of faith in Arsenal and Liverpool after watching them. So I kind of like having Trent, Jota, Saka, Havertz. So many players that you can get if you sacrifice one of them, especially Haaland, which you get so much money for. But again, I was really hesitant to pull him out, and if I would put him back in, the three changes you would do in this team to get Haaland in, or like the three additional changes, including doing Solanke to Haaland, you would also do Jota to a 5.5 midfielder like Semenyo, for example. You would just have to do Saka down to Rodgers, a 5.0 midfielder, or Adama Traore, and you would have to do Guardiola down to a 5.5 defender like Pedro Porro, or downgrade Guardiola even more and then have enough money to have like a 6.5 midfielder rather than Semenyo, for example, for Jota. So that is what you would have to sacrifice to get Haaland in for Solanke. But I also really like what I saw from Solanke this game week. I like Isak a lot. I like Havertz a lot. I like Solanke a lot. So that's kind of the decision that I made when it comes to this wildcard draft. But I'm guessing you're still not convinced.
No,
No.
I just think Haaland is just too good to not have.
Yeah.
And especially with all the, like, man, we're acting like he's not the top goal scorer. Like,
I think it's gonna
points,
be, but
yeah, he is the Golden Boot winner times two, and he's gonna likely be Golden Boot winner times three again, especially with Gundogan back as well. Like, fuck me. So, yeah, I would still not advise against Haaland or Salah. I think it's just you got to bite the bullet and have both.
Yeah, I mean that is fair enough.
I,
And
but again, you can spread the points out if you feel that these players can cover for Haaland. Sure,
yeah, I mean
but at the
that's
same
my
time,
thinking.
Haaland as my triple captain is probably going to get more points than what I got the entirety of last week. So, like, yeah, man, it
There
comes
is
with
a
risk.
possibility.
Everything comes with risks, and everyone's big enough to make their own decisions and all that shit. But I just think the Haaland is, you know, scoring against Chelsea was big for many reasons, and I think this is going to be proper catch-up effect, and he just goes absolutely insane.
Yeah, and just for reference, I still in my own team, I'm not going to wildcard myself. I still have Haaland and I have Salah, so I still have a lot of faith in that duo. Obviously, that's why I picked them for Game Week 1. I don't think much has changed since Game Week 1 either. It's just Jota looks like a so much more better pick now than he did initially. I think Solanke looked like a good player in his debut. Havertz looks like someone that I completely overlooked as well. I figured Arsenal would get a striker and he would not play that much as a striker, but it seems like now they're just going to get Mikel Merino in midfield and Havertz is going to be the main man up front, and he looked really good in the first game. I just have a lot of faith in Arsenal despite the tough fixtures that they have on paper. That's why I like Saka Havertz, but I could really be, if I was wildcarding this week, I could also be persuaded to still have Haaland and Salah, but I just feel like Salah can cover Haaland enough on his own to spread the funds around and have more of a squad there. But I do get your point as well. So again, if you're watching Manager of the Week, Jamia, Hercules, then please let us know in the comments as well if you're looking to wildcard. That might not even be the case, but if you are looking to wildcard, would you have Haaland for this game week, especially, or would you go without him to spread the funds around? That's the big question for me, at least, how we're going to maneuver the Salah Haaland thing going into the future, pretty much. But if you were to put in Haaland for Solanke in this team, that is 7.5 million you have to make up for the rest of the squad. Who would you sacrifice to bring in Haaland if you were wildcarding yourself this game week? 7.5 million, that's quite a lot of money. Even if you downgrade Saka, who's what, 10.0 to 4.5, yeah. That's 5.5. You still have to make up 2 million after that as well. And then you would have, if you downgrade Saka to a 4.5 and Guardiola to a 4.0, you technically have enough money for Haaland, but then you would have 4 players at the lowest possible price, including 2 midfielders. I think that seems a bit much, but
yeah, I mean, you could potentially make Kai Havertz into someone else, right?
yeah.
How much is Kai Havertz this year? 8?
He's 8.0, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, you could potentially make Kai Havertz into
6.0. Muniz,
yeah.
5.5 player, maybe.
Yeah, Juan Pedro, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the worst picks, and again, so ironic that in a 3-0 win, Juan Pedro did nothing. But yeah.
So you would downgrade the Arsenal players, maybe Saka to Rodgers and Havertz to João Pedro. I think that might be enough.
Yeah, potentially.
Pedro would be 2.5, and Saka to 5 would be 5, so that would be 7.5.
Or potentially,
so that would actually be enough.
Or potentially Havertz and Eze. No, that wouldn't be enough. You'd have to do Saka.
Yeah, Saka would have to go, definitely.
Yeah. So I think so it'd be probably Saka or
Trent, but I think he has just 2 good matches and he looked so good in the first game.
Yeah. No, I think that is. Unfortunately, I think because if Aston Villa do what I expect them to do, which is win, and then if they piss, they'll probably spank the shit out of Brighton again. But it is the Spurs City stuff that is a bit scary. And that is where you expect the motherfucking Haaland to show up, especially, he has in the past, so it's not, beyond him to do so. And there's been lots of talk, and obviously it seems like Haaland keeps track of the stuff. Like, I don't know if you saw the stuff he said about Cucurella recently, like, oh, last year he asked for my jersey, and this year after winning the Euros he was singing about me. So yeah, I decided to show him who's boss and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm sure the 2 draws against Arsenal's sort of weighing on him because he missed a lot of chances in both of those games. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man, I just think Haaland's just too good of a fucking player
Yeah.
to not have.
I mean,
And
that's fair enough.
we know he is just he is quite literally just always a hat trick away because he can do it against quite literally anyone. It's just
Yeah.
about getting that consistency and getting more than 3 touches a game wherever the fuck he keeps doing, or 3 passes. It's crazy, and he
Yeah.
still scores. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a wild player.
Yeah, he is. What I did see from Holland was his own terrible pronunciation of his own name. Like, he completely butchered it and said it in a way that no Norwegian has ever said his name ever. So I don't really have too much faith in the pronunciation guides that we get from the Premier League anymore, because Holland's own interpretation of his name was just completely out there. It is Erling Braut Haaland, if you want to say it correctly, or Erling Braut Haaland in his dialect as well. But the Haaland thing that he did in his in the video, like, that makes no sense at all to me. But that's not the reason why haven't picked him in the squad. And I think you maybe convinced me to drop the Arsenal players and bring in Haaland. Still potentially, I don't know. It is a really tough decision for me. But I do like Salah as well. But I'm also kind of happy that I have both Salah and Haaland for this game week, and that I can do this decision in game week 3 instead of doing it in game week 2, where I can sell Haaland before he faces my own team, West Ham, which is going to bite me in the ass most likely. But I could potentially do that myself with my own team, selling him for someone like Watkins for game week 3 with the fixtures that Aston Villa have, and then have enough funds to get the likes of Saka and those guys eventually. So maybe it's more of a game week 3 decision. Maybe I jumped the gun a bit with removing Haaland from the game week 2 wildcard draft, but I don't know. I sort of just went for it because I felt like it when I made the video. But anyways, if you want to watch the full video of me speaking about the weekly wildcard draft and all the picks and why I more in depth why I went against Haaland in this draft, you can check out the video, the weekly wildcard draft video that I posted earlier this week. What I also forgot to mention earlier was that if you want to be the manager of the week, like Hercules, I'll just call him, did this week, then you can join the FPL Scope Mini League with the league code hpxeri, and you can be the manager of the week if you have the highest score in a particular game week. And we're going to cover you on the podcast like we did this time with Hercules. So yeah, with all of that out of the way, we've talked for an hour and a half now. A lot of different things when it comes to FPL Game Week 1 and Game Week 2 and beyond that as well. With all that said, I'm done myself talking, and as always, I give the last word to Kevin, and let's see what Kevin has to say this time around.
Come on, Haaland fucking hat trick.
Fair enough. Good night and goodbye, or good morning, or whatever when you're watching. See ya. Bye bye.